May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to thee, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. The year was 1978. I had 2 kids. One was 3 and one was 2. They were 14 months apart. And my husband and I and the kids were going with our best friends from our home in Grover City, which is in San Luis Obispo County, to a property we had just purchased in Atascadero, California, also in San Luis Obispo County. We were so excited to show our friends our new property. It meant we would be living further away from them, but we were very good friends and we knew they'd come up and visit us. So we packed a picnic and left the house and climbed into their van and headed out on the highway. It's 101, straight north, up over the pass of mountains and into Atascadero. Well, we hadn't made it as far as the pass yet when I looked around to see who had Ryan. And I said, "Who's got Ryan?" Silence. Not funny, you guys. Who's got Ryan? Anxiety mounting. Silence. I said, "Where's Ryan? He was with us as we were coming out of the house." Now, we were like an amoeba, this group of friends. Our children were very well behaved, and they were always with us. And I was as much a mother to her 3 as she was to my 2, and the dads also. We'd all seen the crowd leave the house, and we thought we all got into the van, but the trouble with having everybody in charge of all the kids is we all assume somebody else has the one that we don't have, right? Nobody got Ryan, and nobody knew where he disappeared. Between the house and the van, he had disappeared. Now, I didn't have to go a day's journey back to Jerusalem to find him, and I didn't lose the Son of God. I lost my child, but it felt like it was my loss. I didn't realize everybody else was just as anxious as I was, but I had enough anxiety to split the county in 2. So we got off at the first exit off the highway and went to a gas station, called my neighbor, who's a policeman, and I said, "Go look for Ryan. We can't find him." Humiliating. We got back in the car and drove home, anxious still to find out where was he and are they going to find him okay. And yes, he had left the house and assumed we were taking our minivan, had climbed into our minivan and buckled himself safely into his child carrier and watched as we all went to our friend's bigger van. It had more seats. So he watched us drive away. We were reunited. Everybody was fine, but we now have a family story. And unlike Mary and Joseph, there was no double meaning to what happened. What happened was simply we all trusted that somebody else had the kid, and it didn't work in this instance. Ryan doesn't really remember this, but I'll never forget it. With Mary and Joseph, however, Luke wants us to see the double meaning going on here. So let's look at this story from the view of parents first, and then see what Luke is trying to get us to think about. As parents, they had gone with Jesus every year during the Passover to Jerusalem. Luke is the only gospel writer that tells us this, that they are very faithful Jews. They go and observe the Passover with their friends and neighbors and other pilgrims who go to Jerusalem with them. So we know Jesus is very familiar in the territory of the temple. And also remember, the story just preceding this is when Jesus is a baby and Mary and Joseph take him to the temple to have him blessed. And first Simeon blesses Jesus and says some words to the parents. And then Anna, the prophetess, or the prophet, also blesses Jesus. So he gets this double blessing in the temple. And we are supposed to start associating the temple with Jesus. Because what happens in the gospel is that worship changes. It moves from worship within the temple to worship within this loose band of followers of Jesus, because the church is wherever Jesus is, right? So he goes to the temple so that we will see that the transformation is going to start in the temple. And indeed, in Luke's second book, the book of Acts, it's in Jerusalem that the new church begins and spreads out. And it's in the temple that all things start to happen. So Jesus goes to the temple to do what? He's learning. This is the Son of God learning. So we are to relate to him as a normal child. He is not a normal child, but he is, according to Luke, gaining wisdom and maturity from these church or these synagogue temple leaders. Excuse me. It's the temple leaders that are in the temple. And when Mary and Joseph finally find him in the temple, Mary says very poignantly and pointedly, "Your father and I have been looking for you." And Jesus turns the word father right on its base and says, "Didn't you know I would be in my Father's house?" And he does not mean Joseph. It's a slap in the face to his parents. There's no other way to look at it. But he is asking them to start transforming their relationship with him. And here's the deal about losing Jesus, because we all lose Jesus. What works one day, and we feel Jesus' presence with us, doesn't work the next day. Most of us don't feel that assurance that Jesus is with us all the time. And what this means is that we're normal. Most people don't feel this sense of Jesus being with them all the time. But we have learned to have faith that he is with us. But it also means that Jesus is always upping the ante with us, like he did with his parents. He wanted them to start transforming their idea of what their relationship with him was, in addition to transforming their relationship to what God was. In a few more chapters, they are going to go looking for him again. They've lost him again. He's on the walk with his disciples, going all over Galilee teaching. And when they finally catch up with him, they try to get through the disciples to see their son. And you remember the story. The disciples say, "Who are you looking for?" And they say, "Jesus." And they go and tell Jesus, "Your mother and your brothers are here." And remember what happens? He says, "This is my family." Saying basically, they're not my family. This is my family. Those who follow my Father's commandments are my family. Ouch, again. So this little story of Jesus in the temple is like a foretelling of the story that comes later. But notice at the end of this story, it says that Mary treasured these things in her heart. Now, you wouldn't treasure if your son had rebuffed you and your feelings were hurt, would you? So she understands the deeper meaning of what's happening. And Luke wants us to know that she understands. That's Mary's theme song. Mary treasured these things in her heart. When the shepherds came and told her these wonderful things about her boy. When she went to the temple and Simeon and Anna told her these incredible prophecies about her boy. She treasures these things in her heart. And when she sees that he is changing this relationship between her husband Joseph and her and him, she knows that there's more in store and that her heart will be pierced. Yes, it takes a broken heart to find our true relationship with Christ. And that's what's so hard for us in our daily walk to remember, is that Jesus does play hide and seek with us, but it's only because it's out of love. That we love him on a safe level because that's the level that we operate on. And Jesus wants to reach down into our deepest pain and redeem that. And we like to push away our deepest pain and not deal with it, to hide it. In order to be deeply attached to our Lord Jesus Christ, we have to become deeply split open, to allow the feeling of being lost or not being able to find God, to allow that to transform us. We have to go looking for Jesus and know that if we find him, our relationship will be different. And I should say, when we find him, our relationship will be different. We have to constantly grow and change and grow and change. And in case we don't get that, our bodies do the growing and changing, or shrinking and changing, as the case may be. So we have to have a new relationship with who was comfortably near us yesterday and seems to be miles away today. So we give thanks for this little story in Luke that introduces us to the concept that we can lose our Lord God. We can. But guess who's always looking for us? And asking us to not only find him, but to transform with him, to be the resurrected Christians he's calling us to be. Amen.